Hello. We are in step 4 of the step training NDS tutorial modules. And in step 4, what we'd like to do is just talk about building a ration. We've gone through steps 1, 2, and 3, and we've looked at how to set up and some settings and how to import some feeds. And now what we'd like to do is actually just go through and pick up and start building diets now. I think we're ready for that. If you've gone through the first 3 tutorials, then we should be ready for building a ration and start going into some of those functions here. Excuse me, let's get back here. All right. So what we'd like to do real quick is just do a quick review. I'm in my demo working group. My farm structure's here. What I want to do is build a new recipe. What I may do is I may actually even go in there and just check the farm structures I have in here. I may go to my first herd or my second herd template here and do a quick farm duplication and call it July Demo Dairy. And again, I will call it JDD1 for a code if I ever want to send it to anybody. And I'm going to just go ahead and proceed from there. And I've got my July Demo Dairy here. I chose not to put any to duplicate the rations that were in here because I want to start from scratch. So I've got my pins and everything done through my farm structure. I've got my farm built. So now I'm going to go to recipes. And there's 2 ways I can start a new recipe. If you look up here, there's a little green button that says create a new recipe. I can click that and it will ask me to go through the process of saying which farm do I want, and let's just go ahead and do a fresh recipe. And after clicking that, it will bring me right into a screen that says new recipe, lactating dairy cow, and I am in the animal input section. And this is very important to start putting this in and realizing that the strengths of the model, of course, in session 3 we talked about the inputs of the feed analysis, which are really important. Second thing is to describe your cow and your animal as well as you can. And again, we get into a whole 2 or 3 hour discussion about, are we doing the average cow in the dairy? Are we doing a 1 dairy TMR group? Are we doing 1 pin? But what we want to do is just take some time and look and figure out the sensitivity of most of these areas. The first 4 or 5 lines here are not very sensitive to the model. Basically, you're doing a dairy animal, you're doing Holstein, but what's really important is not the definition. There's no preset definitions by breed, but what it is, it's the size of the animal and then the output of that animal. So the size, age, and everything are put up here. We've got a second lactation animal described. If I wanted a third lactation, I can change that. What it's telling me is that she calved at 24 months of age. If I wanted to change that to 23 and make her calving interval 14, then what it is doing, it's changing the math right over here to tell me that that animal should be 54 months of age. But now if I go down here and make her a 200-day in-milk animal, it's telling me she ought to be 58 months old. But for our discussion, what I may do is I chose a fresh animal, so we may make her 60 days in milk and change our animal to 53 months of age. Let's go ahead and make her a 13-month calving interval. It's just doing the math, telling you where we are in age of our animal and what growth stage she's in. Down below, you can see that this is the targeted growth area, looking at what you've described as the mature body size. And let's make this animal 1,500 pounds. And then at 51 months, the targeted growth method is basically saying that by 62 months of age, she is going to be 1,500 pounds like we described her. At 62 months of age, she no longer grows. But where we are at 51 months of age in her third lactation, she ought to start that current lactation at 440. And we've got her down here at 1385. So knowing your body weights and stuff, I may just put her down there at 1450. But what we really need to know and understand is the targeted growth method is taking into account the amount of nutrients that the animal should partition off to growth to give you that animal. And once we describe this animal, I think we can go right over here to graphs and then to look at the description of our animal, and we can figure out this is her adult size at 63 months of age, right out here at fourth calving. 63 months of age. If we hover over that, it's going to tell us she's 1,500 pounds. First calving should be 80 to 83% of mama's size, which should be about 1275. And we should continue meeting this growth pattern to achieve the animal's size and the amount of nutrients it will take to continue to grow her. So this is just a good little growth curve that's built into the graph section of the animal types as we're describing the animal input here. Now if I err in here and I put in what's highlighted here is her average daily gain. This is what she needs to grow, not her body condition score, but her average daily gain to meet that mature size at 1,500 pounds. If we erred by saying she was 1,200 pounds and she's 51 months of age, then our default value from the growth model will tell us that she needs to get an average daily gain of almost 0.9 pounds per head per day. And so what we really need to do is make sure that the inputs in the animal inputs in our new recipe is right. And we can set this up as a one-time system in the utilities so we don't have to change it constantly, but I'm just manipulating this around to show you the problem that you can come up with when this average daily gain becomes unrealistic. And again, the program will take that away from milk, and you will be frustrated by the amount of milk that is lost by that average daily gain. Now there's also a function here. You could click off the targeted growth method, and on a fresh cow you could type in a number 0.05 or 0.1 on a fresh cow who would be losing weight at, let's say, 45 days of age. And we can manipulate that around using, when you click this off, you can add a number in there. But be very aware of what you're manipulating here as you work with that system. Now, the second part of the screen down here is your outputs. You have milk production, the fat, and true protein down here, casein, milk, lactose, and you've got some body condition scores in here and calf size. So again, whether you put if I was doing a fresh cow group and the herd tank average was 375, the fresh cows, I might be asking them to do 3.5 fat test and maybe 3.0 protein. And I know if you do scatter graphs, you'll have some cows that are mobilizing body tissue and their milk fat may be way up. But what we're asking her to produce will be lower on a scatter graph in the 60 to 120 day cows. So again, we're just filling this in, our animal inputs and our new recipes. We can go to environment. We could change this environment around. Again, it's at thermal neutral, so if we make 85 and 80 degrees with night cooling of 75, we can see that it puts her in some moderate heat stress. And again, changing this around, manipulating it around. Again, you can see, play with it and use the sensitivity of this. This will actually modify your maintenance requirement and, of course, your dry matter intake prediction. Activity, the animal basically how you've described the farm. May go with close parlor, large freestall, over 200 cows in the freestall, far parlor. The activity, there's also a management tab. We can get into that as we set up the recipe. There will be management functions on stalls and hours away from feed, hours per milking, and more information there. But what I wanted to do is just go to animal inputs in my new recipe and set this up. And again, you can set this up in the utilities under parameters for any group of cows. Oops, wrong area. Animal default types. So what I can do is I can set this up for my lactating dairy cow and describe it once, and then it will become a user default value. Whatever you decide you want to use, then that'll come up every time you do your lactating cow. You can set it up for dry cows, whatever you want to do. So it's tailored to you every time for your computer. When you start a new recipe, it will default to that. And of course, then you can just click on that very easily and get through it. Then when you get over to the recipe tab, here is the way we can set up our recipe. The recipe screen is showing you, here's your feeds here. Here's a micro shot of what you described on the previous page. This will be the nutrient output section. Over here will be the outputs for the CNCPS, and down here these tabs will fill. So I'm just going to go ahead and build the diet real quick. I can click on the black plus box here to get to my main feed library, and my main feed library has all my feeds in it. And so there's some feeds in there that we actually used or we imported in our step 3. I'm going to go ahead and use that alfalfa hay, this first cutting grass silage, haylage, this corn silage. Then I can see up in the upper right, those are added in there. I may go to my search button and type in corn G, and I want to pull these out of the CNCPS feed library to make them reliable, to make sure that they're the base feed from the North America Cornell Feed CNCPS library. I may pull in this corn grain. I may go ahead and get some steam flaked corn. I think I'll do this 22-pound flake here. I can hover over this icon and it'll give me an idea of what I have here. You can see those feeds were added here. I may go ahead and look at some soy products, and let me use some soybean meal, sweep this clean, add a little canola. I can sweep this clean and add some cotton, and go ahead and find my fuzzy cottonseed here. I may go ahead and open the libraries back up, sweep this clean, and I may put in a trace pack product. There's a good one for an example. Sweep this clean, add some limestone. I can keep doing this with any feeds, anything in my library, maybe some mag ox, and there's some magnesium oxide. I may go ahead and pull the one out of the feed CNCPS feed library, sweep clean. I may use some ethanol, just using the ethanol corn distillers out of the feed library. I can sweep this clean. I may want to use some Megalac, and when I open up a commercial product, I can see that I've got 3 products here that are from the RUM&N feed library that are also listed with the company name behind them. So what I can do is I can know that those are protected feeds out of the feed library with the rumen icon here. And so those are products that came from manufacturer. We put them in the rumen feed library, so they are unchangeable. So that feed was put in the feed library. It's got some manufacturer specs on there. They were repeatable, approved by us. If I go into, let's look at Soy Best. And again, if I want to go into the rumen library, there's Soy Best with the grain states behind it. So if I hover over those, I can see that the Soy Plus is there. And so let me add that. I'm going to go ahead and proceed with my feeds there. And it takes a little time for those feeds to be pulled into my recipe here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and take some liberty and go ahead and build a diet by happenstance and go ahead and start plugging in some values, and we can talk about them as we go, but I'm just going to quickly build a diet and we can see how my diet is after we're done here. And what I should be coming up with down below, here's my dry matter intake pounds. Over here I can see my analysis of my feeds, or of my recipe, excuse me. And I can build this together. And so now I've got a diet that I just threw together. I've got 51.45 pounds intake. The calculations are 78 pounds of milk on energy, 81 on MP. I've got 45 grams of methionine into these animals, 160 from the CNCPS output. Here's the physical side of the diet. My soluble protein's 37.3. Crude is 16.0. Got a 30.8 NDF, starch at 27, sugar at 3.4. So here is how I've built the diet. And again, if that maybe that intake is only 47 pounds, or let's make it 48 at that days in milk, then I'm at about 70 pounds of milk on energy and 75 on milk protein. If I was feeding the same diet to my high cows and they were eating 59 pounds of feed, I can use this same function to say that that would give me 92 and 96. If I right mouse click back on here, I can go back to my original or any variation. I probably want to go to that 48 and just use that. My predictions down here say that that would be more like a 42.5 on dry matter intake. Got daily water intake here. I can look at NDF as a percent of body weight, NDF intake as percent of body weight. And I'm at 1.02, and you can see the span there is 1.01 to 1.21. So this may be a little low for that animal. And as we see, we can put some prices in here. I'm just going to go ahead and take some liberty again, 200. I'll charge 55 for that. I'm going to do 65 on the silage. 200 on the corn, 210 on the flakes, 500 on that, 400 here, 500 here. I'm just throwing in some prices here, and I can see where I come up with. So now I can see that my feed price is $6.78. I can choose whether these are purchased or home-raised feeds. And again, I've got a bunch of information here that is probably going to be a little more than this Step 4 tutorial. What I can do now is I can save this as, and what it's going to do is it's going to save the recipe. And again, I want this as July Dairy Diet, Dairy Farm, whatever we called it. And this would be my fresh diet. And 2014 701. And if I sweep this clean down here and put my cursor back up here and hit enter, my description and my personal name are the same. Once I save, it gives an ID code 1 and 2 for this farm. And then again, I am saving this in my external file structure, which we went over already in one of the other sessions. So now I've got this diet made. It's here. It's the July Demo Dairy, July the Fresh Diet. If I have a mix, I want to create a mix. So what I may do is go to Create a Mix. I may put my trace pack in there, my limestone, my Magox, my Megalac, and maybe I'll put in the Soy Plus also. I'm going to go ahead and call this my July Dairy Demo Lactation, and again the date, and now I will create this mix, and there is my mix. Now if I want to, I can see that it's a plus box, it's a mix, click out, throw in a batch mix. I can keep the batch unmixed if I want to go through and make sure that I am hand rounding instead of auto rounding. And so this will allow me to help the mill if I want to do this step. I can sure do this. And then I've rounded this, which you don't need to, but I can go ahead and go to the print function. And here is my batch sheet. And again, if I don't want to show any of the prices, I can right mouse click on Composite, go to Properties, and take out the cost, apply changes. I can also go to Full Analysis and use a user report that I've made before, and we'll go through this in another session. But actually looking at, some reports, I can set this up any which way I want from within the program. Now, as we set up our external file structure, I can send this file. So what it's going to do is it's going to save it in my external file structure as NDS July Dairy Demo Lactation. I can change the name if I want. Click Save. And if we've done things right, it pops right up here. And I can send this off to the feed mill and go ahead and get it right done from within the program itself. So just some functionality there within the program to show you. I do not want to save those changes. So that is, I'm able to send this mix. I can also put a mix within a mix. So now I've got a farm mix. If I wanted to create another mix, sorry, I've got a feed mill mix. If I wanted to create a farm mix and put everything in there for the farm, all right, I'm going to put all the concentrates in there. So then I can do July demo farm mix 2014-701 and create a farm mix. Now I've got a mix within a mix. I can do the same thing. I can create this. He's going to do a 12,000 pound batch. Oops. 12,000 pound batch. And again, what I would do is probably round this off for the guy at the farm. Go ahead and it will put feeds into the largest amount of feed, which would be the flaked corn. So from here I'd probably do 2250 for my guy at the farm. If I can get him to do 1100 and 1100, 2150 here, and 1315 here, then I can send him this through the same function right through here as we did before. Again, send it to the farm right away, let him mix that up. So then I've got my recipe showing here with my mixes. If I want to unmix the mix, then I can go here, use these little squigglies here to unmix the unmix ingredient into the recipe tab. When I do that, I've got a different color. I could also unmix my lactation custom, and then I've got two different colors there showing me that mix within a mix. And so when I go to recreate the mix, there's a cascading domino right here. If I click here, it will tell me that the July dairy demo lactation is within the July demo farm mix. And that's the clue that I should mix that one together first. Here's my demo lactation mix. If I want to change it, create a new version, I can do that. I'm going to go ahead and keep it the same. And then I'll go back to the remix button and remix my July farm demo mix without making any changes. And there's my recipe again. So again, creating a mix, sending the mix, putting a report together, unmixing and remixing is simply done with those functions. So again, we're creating the farm. We've looked at the animal type. Again, we're looking at our ingredients here. This is the CNCPS output here. The outputs from what this ration will do at that dry matter intake with the description of that animal there. This is the physical side or the nutrient side of what's in your diet. And again, here's a bunch of tabs and a bunch of information that, again, we'll take another session in the tutorials. Again, over here, here's my feed intake. Here's my feed cost. Here's my as-fed pounds and my TMR pounds. If by chance I was feeding hay outside the TMR, I can click this little button. And suddenly I've got the total pounds as fed, but the weighted TMR does not include that alfalfa hay. But again, just some more buttons, some more things to look at. We can go over to the mixer wagon function here as a report options to send a report. I want to prepare this for 300 head. I want 100% of the intake. I want increments of 4 animals, and the number of increments I want to show is is 18, and my feedings are going to be 2 feedings. So when I go to the report, I can look at it, and again, here's the report as it's set in here. Just zeros in here. What did I do? 300 feedings as forages. All right. And here's my amounts that I'd be feeding per head listed through here. I can go through some options, and there's merge tables, and it will create separate pages instead of run-on pages. Another function in there I would probably want to do 8 more increments. Take that to 24. Oops. And go ahead and do the report. Go to the options and include the dry matter %. So the ingredients are seen as, here's my corn silage at 30% dry matter. Gives me a nice functional page. If I go back here, I can click onto the appendix for the feeding chart, go back to my report, and go back to options, dry matter. And what's interesting is the second page then is looking at a moisture index for the wet feeds. So my haylage was 39.7, my corn silage was 30. If my corn silage goes to 29 or 28, here's my multiplying factors for that amount that's in my feeding chart to get to the amount of feed I need to make up for my wetter feed. If my feed gets drier, here's my multiplying factor for that. That's your mixer wagon report. The mixer wagon is you can change this order. I would probably, like everybody, put your feeds in first, your hays, and then you can manipulate this around by the arrows. What this can be independent of your recipe page. It'll save this order differently as your recipe page. So that allows you to do that. So again, just going through some of the mixer wagon, the demo, we built a recipe. We've changed some around. Later on, as we look at recipes and we start doing the optimizer, we'll look at that comparison tab and some of that information there. So again, the step 4 was basically how to build a diet, how to put one together. Again, the other way you could do this to start off, if I wanted to go to main menu and I wanted to build the recipe from scratch, I could go to recipe and I can go to the farm that we want to, and so we were going to do July demo, and instead of going up to the green plus box and do all that, I might want to do a high cow diet. So if I right mouse click here on the high diet, I can do a new recipe for the high cow diet, and again it takes me right back to that same nutrient entry page. Here's my fresh diet, here's my new lactating diet, and I'm in animal inputs. I can go right over and start building that recipe that way also. A shortcut, I guess, is when I get to the fresh animal, back to the fresh animal, I can go and change my animal inputs. I could change that to 110 days in milk. I could change that to 99 pounds of milk with a 3.5, and may want to just go ahead and do that. Change the recipe. manipulate my feeds, change that to 59 pounds of intake, and then I could actually go and save this as the high cow diet, and with just a couple little strokes here I can save in another pen and put that in my high cow diet. But again, just going over some simple functions on building your diet, starting a recipe from scratch. And so I think that's all we're going to do on step 4 for the step 4 tutorial. Thanks a lot.